Oh, great. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Simon.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
It's such a nice evening as well. And thanks everybody else for joining us and keeping you away from barbecues and gardens and the sunshine. But it's great to have you on the call. Tracy, you're both a head teacher and education ambassador and worked with the charity for quite a few years now, I think. When did you first get involved?
Well, I first got involved with the charity as when my son was 6 and he had his first really severe allergic reaction.
Right.
And I searched out information and found the charity. And I was really lucky to attend a support group in the local area. And then the lady that was doing the support group had to stop. So I thought, is this something that I can try and continue? Which I did. And then I spoke at a conference where I met your predecessor, Lynn, and she asked me to speak at a couple of anaphylaxis campaign conferences. And then she decided that actually it would be great, knowing that I was a head teacher, to embrace that for the charity, and said, how about becoming the education ambassador so that I can actually help change things for schools.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I know you've done quite a few webinars for us, and certainly helped us an awful lot on our education program and the Allergy Wise for schools as well, which has been great. And all of those on your call, I'm going to plug constantly the need to promote our training courses for teachers and make the schools as a whole allergy wise. And was in more information on our website. So do encourage schools to adopt those training packages. They're very modestly priced as well. So yet another plug. So you've been really helpful at developing that for us as well, Tracy. Tell us a little bit about your role as head teacher in the school. Then, how big's the school?
So my main school, Fitzmaurice, has about 300 children. We are a rural school, but based in a town, but we are very rural. The main hospital is a good 6 miles away, but actually that's a good over half an hour journey. And then I'm also head teacher of a small village primary school just outside of the town, where there are about 70 children on roll. So that's even a little bit further away from all of the medical services and support. So,
and a range of children with allergies.
Yes, we do. We have a good range of allergies in school, and we have one little boy who's got 11 different allergies. So we manage very much go down the route of managing rather than and risk assessing, which will be two of the things that I discuss as we go through the webinar.
That's super. So I know you prepared a number of slides for us on starting reception. Should we dive into those?
Yep, absolutely. And then we can have a look at any questions and bits and pieces that you want to pick up at the end.
Yes, that's great. And those that are listening in, I think the chat is open, so do pop open any of the pop over some of the questions that you may have, and we've got some time at the end, I think, Tracy, haven't we, to have a discussion and go through some of those questions. Quite a few have already been sent in, so we may well cover off in the presentation what's been sent in, but pop them on over.
Okay, lovely. So thank you. I will start this screen sharing. Let me see. There we go. Okay, so I'm just orientating myself. You've popped into another little screen, so you're down there, but the presentation is over here. So yeah, a very big warm welcome to everybody, and thank you for coming along this afternoon. We've already just sort of covered a little bit about me, but it was a terrifying moment about 9 years ago when my son suffered a severe allergic reaction out of the blue. And that transformed our lives, which I'm sure you can resonate with. Until that point, I got knowledge of hay fever and animal hair allergy because my son suffered from those, but I'd only got a vague understanding of food allergy. I knew that it existed. However, since that point, I've navigated a primary school who didn't know anything about allergies and made way too many mistakes to begin with. And now I'm grappling with teenage independence. So in my position as head teacher and a mum to an allergic boy, I've worked with Wiltshire Local Authority and the local CCG to improve care for all children and young people in the area, and also with the Anaphylaxis campaign, say initially running a support group before becoming the education ambassador. So today, my aims through this webinar are to actually go through a little bit about what you can expect from school, covering off some legislation and the spare pens in school that you might have heard about, and whether schools should be nut-free or allergy aware, about working together, thinking about food and drink in school, and what to do if it goes wrong. As I've said, my son school, when he was first diagnosed, made a lot of mistakes, and some really useful resources. Okay, so I very much believe when working with a school, actually, you are the experts as parents and carers. You are the person that knows your child and your child's responses to their allergens. But I'd just like to take you back for a moment to that moment that you learned that your child had allergies, and how much did you know about allergy at that moment? And I think for most people like myself, actually you may not have known very much, but what you had to do was you had to learn, and learn rapidly, in order to keep your child safe. For most schools and the staff working there, this is the same. Until they need to know professionally or have experienced allergy in their personal life, they will have been blissfully ignorant of the challenges and fear lived out on a daily basis. So for me, relationships are key. School staff, parents and carers are the expert in this situation. Every child with an allergy is different because every child reacts differently. Schools want to ensure that your child is safe and that they will want to learn, and actually parents and carers are best placed to help. And I think regular, open and non-judgmental communication is key to a successful relationship. I think the first step as parent and carer with your child starting school in September is to actually inquire in that non-judgmental way about school staff's knowledge of allergy and the school's approach. Do they have other children with allergies already in school? And if they don't have any knowledge, then offer to share yours and arrange to do this in a meeting at a mutually convenient time. I think understanding is the key to a successful relationship. I haven't ever met a member of school staff who doesn't care and who doesn't go the extra mile for the children in their care. We will all have different perspectives on each situation, and sometimes our perspectives don't match. What I might think as a parent might not be realistic. What I might think as a head teacher might not be realistic. And starting conversations with school or parents with this viewpoint will help. I think it's always great to start when tackling conversations with parents or with schools with, "I was wondering," or "Is it possible that?" because it gives us a basis on which to explore. I think, as you can see the picture on the slide, there is an anaphylaxis risk assessment that I developed quite a long time ago now for Wiltshire Local Authority and the Healthcare Trust at the time. Now, in supporting your conversation with the school or with parents, the anaphylaxis campaigns Making Schools Safer page is a really useful place to start. And this risk assessment that you can see on screen is there. And I suggest that it's completed with the child's teacher and the parent in order to help each other understand the child's allergy. It's a framework for the conversation that takes you step by step through a range of things that the child will encounter during their time at school, from junk modelling to egg rolling to forest schools to day trips and residential trips. The pages of that risk assessment actually have been designed to prompt conversation. For schools, the risk assessment is a perfect way to get to know the individual child's needs, and it does need to be updated each year and with each teacher in primary school or after a reaction. In secondary school, it should be reviewed after a reaction and ideally in Year 7 and Year 9. Here at Fitzmaurice and at Westwood, my two schools, it's initially completed with a senior member of staff, usually myself, the lady from the office who coordinates medical conditions, the parents and the teacher. And after this, it is just reviewed by the teacher and parents if there have been no change, or the entire team again if there has been reaction, especially a reaction in school. In each school, the staff who deal with the coordinations of medical conditions is different. In some schools, it might be the first aider. In other schools, it might be a member of the office or the SENCO, that is a special needs coordinator, or another designated member of staff. Okay. Let me just swap slides. So thinking about what you can actually expect from school, there is a key piece of legislation that schools have, and this is called, as you can see on the screen there, Supporting Pupils at School with Medical Conditions. In this document, the school's duties are laid out very clearly, and it's very easy to Google. It is for all children with medical conditions and not just those with allergies. It's statutory guidance and sets out what schools and local authorities must do to comply with the law. Schools, maintained or academies, should follow this guidance unless they have very good reason not to. And that sentence, that phrase is contained within that piece of guidance. So there are some myths that I think it's worth just having a quick explore of. I hear lots of people say that schools have to be nut-free. And this document does not say that schools have to be nut-free. And actually, if you ask schools why they are nut-free, they are often unable to articulate why they are and the risk assessment on which their decision was based. A school being nut-free should be based in risk assessment and happen only when there are no other mitigations left to make the environment safe for the child. As this infographic shows, milk has overtaken peanut as the allergen most likely to cause fatality in children under 16. Schools don't and can't be milk-free, so schools manage the risk of milk rather than ban it. And there are an increasing number of children with multiple allergies, and places can't be free of all allergens. Unless there is a compelling reason, for an example, an allergy consultant has stated that a student has an airborne allergy, then it's better to have very robust allergy awareness and practice. I know personally many schools who have claimed to be nut-free, and children have then had anaphylactic reactions to nuts on the premises. If a school is nut-free, it has to be very proactively managed to avoid complacency creeping in. The advantage of being allergy aware means that everybody is on their toes. Allergy is at the forefront of minds because there can be no complacency creeping in. Recently at my school, the staff recognised an allergic reaction being experienced by a child who had just arrived in school that morning with his parent. It was a first reaction ever and the allergy was unknown. Because all of the staff have been trained, because they know all of the signs and symptoms, because the school is allergy aware, my staff were able to react in a timely manner. Another myth is that schools have to have a spare set of auto-injectors. So auto-injectors, as we all know, are Emerades, EpiPens and Jets. But because I will just refer to them as auto-injectors from now on. There was a landmark moment in 2017 when the government produced the guidance on the use of adrenaline auto-injectors in schools, and that allowed schools to hold spare sets of AAIs. In this instance, this piece of guidance is not statutory, which means that schools don't have to do it. Some schools have taken up the opportunity to have AAIs and others have not. And there are limitations in this guidance. These spare AAIs can only be used on a child with a known allergy, and then only if the parent has already given permission. In a primary school, they would need to keep both doses, or with the Emerades, 3 doses of an AAI. This can cause a little bit of reluctance to hold the AAIs because they won't necessarily know in an emergency situation which one to administer it, because it's based on weight. Although, of course, the child's allergy action plan should always be used. Children are able to get their AAIs free on prescription. Schools have to pay private prescription price of around £50 per AAI. If a school wants to purchase an AAI, they take the letter, there is a model letter in the guidance, to the pharmacy and pay it for it, of course. So there is and can be a little bit of reluctance around holding these AAIs in school, especially when children can get their spare set for free on prescription. Another myth is that schools are responsible for telling parents when medication is out of date. The legislation says that it's parents' responsibility to ensure that medicine is in date and that they should check this. I recommend that parents set up alerts to notify themselves when the AAIs are going out of date. And this alert service is available for all 3 auto-injectors. And if schools do hold spare AAIs, this is a good plan too. Ideally, the school does not want to find themselves needing to administer medication that is out of date, and so it should keep a track too. As a parent, I always have my son's school AAIs at home during the summer holidays so that I have an additional set when we travel, but also so that I can check and replenish all bits of his kit. The final myth that I just want to unpick is that you should always go straight to Ofsted to complain. Hopefully nothing will go wrong, but if they do, Ofsted is not usually the place to start. You can go straight to Ofsted, but for the vast majority of cases, all Ofsted will do is ask whether you have followed the school's complaint procedure, and they will not investigate it. Instead, and to avoid your frustration at not having a timely response, you need to follow the school's complaints procedure. As angry and frustrated as you feel, remaining calm is essential. You need to find out what went wrong and work to change the system that allowed the mistake to happen. It can be extremely frustrating when it seems that the school has been thoughtless time and time again. However, this is where the risk assessment I have already shared is helpful. Hopefully, by discussing at the start of each year, the teacher will be prompted by parental questions to think, what is in my curriculum this year that could cause a problem? This can then be worked on by the teachers and parents together to create a satisfactory solution. I find social media is a great place, but a range of misinformation presented as facts is often unhelpful. Instead, turn to the Anaphylaxis campaign because they have a helpline and lots of factual information that really will help. And sometimes the Anaphylaxis campaign on the helpline will turn to me and say, Tracey, what do you think in this situation? And I'll offer any advice that I can. So on a day-to-day basis, where will the AAIs be kept? And that's a good question for parents to ask their teachers. So where will they be kept? And each school is different due to its size and layout. The key thing is the time it would take for the AAI to reach the child in an emergency and that they are not locked up anywhere. So here at Fitzmaurice, we are a very spread out urban site. And so it's really important that we don't just have the AAIs in the office, because that's probably the furthest point. And if you're not very fit like me, it could take 5 minutes to get to the office and 5 minutes to get back to where the child is if they are in the furthest point. So just exploring where they would be kept is really essential. School will often want 2 sets, one to stay in school as a backup and one to be with your child. The set that's with your child is ideally the set that is on your child as you travel to and from school. In a primary school, the adults should retain responsibility for ensuring that the AAIs are always with your child, but they shouldn't restrict their play or their development. It is not reasonable for the child to be expected to wear them, as this would restrict play and development, but they should be easily and readily available wherever the child is, whether that's in the classroom, outside the classroom, on the playground. In my school, the teacher ensures that the kit, and at my school we use yellow bags from Yellow Cross, goes out onto the playground and is put into a yellow box. And yes, there is a bit of a theme. We chose yellow for allergy and medications because then we know instantly what we're looking for. At lunchtime, the yellow bag goes into a yellow box that is in the dinner hall and then goes out to play. As the child moves through school, leaves reception and Key Stage 1, getting a bit older and goes into Key Stage 2, we do encourage them to start to take responsibility for ensuring that their kit is moved. This, however, is overseen by the staff, who always retain the ultimate responsibility. There should be no need for more than 4 AAIs in school or in life. And this would ideally be 2 AAIs that are kept with the child at all times and 2 that are left in school as a backup. Wraparound care really should not need their own set. If the child is taking their home set to and from school, this also then goes to wraparound care. It means that if they're being collected by someone other than who they live with, they already have the AAIs with them, making life simpler all round. Some schools do not require the second set, the backup set, because they're able to use their spare set with all of the permissions gained. Sadly, children do need to learn that they have to have these with them at all times, because they do have to grow up a little bit sooner than some of the rest of the children, with the responsibility that comes with having a medical condition. However, it does just become routine and part of what they do when they have to leave the house. Depending on the child's allergies will depend on whether you want to take advantage of the universal infant free school meal or whether you want to send in sandwiches. If you want to have your child to have hot dinners, then you'll need to inquire about the allergens and see if you can work with Cook to agree how the meal or meals will be safe. The tricky thing here is about entitlements at safe and safety. Even at 15 and throughout when my son was school, I sent his packed lunch in. I know that he could have had the hot food provided by the school, but he still feels safest when he takes it with him. And that's something that we have discussed and negotiated over the years. And I do encourage him to try the food at school now he's so much older, but he doesn't want to do that in that environment, and I have to respect that decision. At primary school, despite the system in place, he was given a dinner that contained his allergen. Luckily, he decided not to even try it, and so the worst thing that happened that day was that he was hungry. And of course, I was cross and frustrated, but I worked with the school to make sure that the ensuing system was changed and made better and safer for all of the children, in addition to my son, who were having hot meals. Schools will have a system in place that is designed for safety, and it may not be the one that you would like because it may not always feel as inclusive as you would like. However, it's important to understand from the school's perspective why this system is in place, and then maybe you can talk about the adaptations that you think are reasonable when you understand how and why they have chosen those things, because they will be feeding potentially hundreds of children during the course of an hour. It may also be that it's not just your child with an allergy and that they are having to balance the needs of many children with lots of different allergies and other medical conditions. And I think really it is about understanding those different perspectives and trying to understand why they have that particular system in place. So at my school currently, there are 6 children with allergies and a total of 18 different allergens that we manage. I can't ban all of those allergens, and it would be wrong for us to be a nut-free school when other children are having to manage the exposure to other allergens. For example, one of our children is allergic to salmon. And there is a tension immediately here because the food standards say that oily fish must be on the menu at least once every 3 weeks. We therefore have to manage it rather than ban it. My friend's daughter is allergic to potatoes. Now, potatoes, schools wouldn't be able to ban potatoes, so it has to be managed. So I come back once again to the risk assessment and how important it is to have that conversation about managing allergy rather than trying to eradicate it, because even if it's not in your house, it is in the world that your child has to live in. As I've said already, milk allergies outstrip nut allergies in children, and up to the age of 5, cow's milk is provided free by the government. Sadly and frustratingly, only cow's milk is provided. It's important to work with the school and parents to see how it will work in the classroom. And there are adaptations like having a set time for snack rather than a rolling snacking foundation stage, having a milk table and a non-milk table. Now that might not feel very inclusive, but I can assure you that not all children like milk, even if they can have it, and there will always be somebody that your child will be sitting with. Food sharing is always discouraged in schools, and from reception in my schools, children are taught about allergy within the curriculum. They understand why food sharing can make somebody poorly. I'm a really big fan of stickers for labelling everything, including clothes. It would be worth having stickers on snacks or lunch boxes that name your child's allergies. It just is a helpful prompt for the staff. It's really good to encourage your children to begin speaking for themselves about the foods that they are allergic to. It's also a good idea to teach them some of the common things that contain their allergen. For example, knowing that they can't eat cake because it contains egg. So inclusion is really tricky at times, but it is achievable. And inclusion is thinking about those small adaptations that mean that everybody can be treated with equity. Everybody's needs are different. Sadly, there is no getting away from the fact that children with allergies are different. And so the way we go about using this difference as a strength is important. I always offer my parents and carers the option of sending a letter from school to everybody in the class that explains about allergy and encourages parents to ask questions. This generally says there is a child in your child's class who is allergic to egg and salmon or peanuts and milk, and doesn't name your child, but it gives the parents in the class the ability to understand some good things that they can proactively do to help include your child. The Anaphylaxis campaign have an example letter that I have shared with them on their website. Inclusion comes from understanding, good relationships, and risk assessment. Working with teachers and parents, working with teachers, parents can offer to provide a list of brands that are safe or depending on your child's allergies, have a safe box of treats in the class for the odd occasion that they may be needed. I've always offered to provide ingredients when cooking, and sometimes this has been accepted and sometimes not. His current form tutor is brilliant. She lets me know when they're eating treats and will ensure that he has something that he can eat. Schools, I really truly believe, don't want to get it wrong, and I find that being open and offering to help has always been greatly received. Training and awareness. There are lots of myths on social media about training and what is and isn't covered. Every first aid provider seems to offer something slightly different, and different first aid qualifications include different things. So a paediatric first aid trainer will have training on allergy, whereas first aid at work doesn't necessarily always cover that. Not all school nurses offer the same amount of training for schools, and not all schools have the same approach to training. The document I referred to at the beginning, Supporting Pupils at School with Medical Conditions, says that governors should ensure that sufficient staff have received suitable training and are competent before they take on responsibility to support children with medical conditions. So it is clear that staff should have received suitable training in order to support children with medical needs. It also goes on to say that any member of school staff may be asked to provide support to pupils with medical conditions, including the administrations of medications, although cannot be required to do so. It is not part of teachers' professional duties, but they need to take into account the needs of pupils with medical conditions that they teach. And any member of school staff should know what to do and respond accordingly when they become aware that a pupil with a medical condition needs help. And I think it's really important to know and to understand that. And actually, lots of school staff feel a little bit anxious because they feel a little bit worried about being able to manage your child's allergy. And that's where I come back to, once again, relationships and open, non-judgmental communication. I advocate that all staff within a school should have allergy awareness training. Not all staff need to have the specific training for the management of anaphylaxis though, and that will be determined by risk assessment. The allergy-wise training that the anaphylaxis campaign have is excellent for providing the awareness that all staff should have. And launching later this year are a set of lesson resources for primary schools, which will help schools develop an essential element of the new relationships and education on allergy. There is also a transition guide from primary to secondary being developed. In conclusion, there are many resources on the Anaphylaxis campaign website that schools and parents may wish to have a look at. Schools in particular may want to have a look at the allergy protocol for schools, and this is a really handy guide to help develop the school's management of allergy. And as you can see from the picture on the infographic, there is a model policy that the Anaphylaxis campaign have worked with the Department for Education and Allergy UK to help schools really get to grips with how they can be supporting children with allergies in school. Whether you are a parent or a teacher, I hope that you can see the alternative side of the messages that I've been trying to put across this evening, and that you can put yourself in the other person's shoes as I've been speaking. My key messages are relationships, working together, and risk assessment. Parents are experts in their own child's allergy management, and schools are expert at knowing how school works and what can be achieved. However, both have the same goal, a great education for your children. So the final slide here is to point you back in the direction of the Anaphylaxis campaign, and I do hope that you have found this webinar useful. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I think we can move into some questions, if we have any, Simon.
Great, thanks, Tracey. Wait for that screen to close.
There we go.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, very informative, very helpful. And thanks for all the plugs for the training, because what we offer is very extensive. The majority of the times it is free for teachers as well. There's a ton of resources. I'm just curious what you were saying about the first aiders as well, Tracey. So if a parent is trying to find out actually who's responsible, who's been trained, is there an allergy lead or an allergy champion? Whereas at your school, you're saying every teacher is trained. How does the parent really kind of make those inquiries on how extensive, how knowledgeable are teachers on managing their allergies?
And that's through just asking the child's teacher. The great thing about starting reception is that there will be lots of opportunities to meet the teacher, and that is one of the questions that the parent can ask, and the teacher should know. They should know the answer to that question. And my teachers would be able to tell you who has got first aid training, and they'll know that it's a whole school approach. And if they don't know, then they would point you in the direction of the office, and the office should be able to answer all of those questions.
And if they want, of course, that training, we point them in our direction.
Absolutely.
So we can help as well. And I know an awful lot of parents clearly will be anxious and worried that their child is going to school and being out of that kind of home environment where they perhaps has got more control. How does the teacher kind of how do you allay any of those anxieties within parents? Just to reassure them that that school is as safe as it possibly can be.
And I come back to that risk assessment and actually having that conversation with parent and teachers, because it is quite comprehensive. And actually, if you follow it through, it will go through section by section by section of all of the different activities that we will be doing. And I think by the time you finish that conversation, the teacher has got a really clear understanding of what they need to do, and the parent has been able to communicate what it is that they're how they would manage it at home, and the teacher can then be thinking about how can I adapt that, what adaptations do we need. So it's
and kind of flipping that around then, similarly for the child going to school for the first time, who also may well be anxious and nervous about being treated differently and standing out perhaps, and being a bit nervous around that whole kind of not being able to eat the same as the mates and all the rest of it. So how do you then also manage that child's anxiety or worries that they might have?
I think parents just need to be reassuring their children that actually all of their peers will have their own unique worries and fears, and that part of that conversation with the teacher will have been about what things do we need to do, what messages do we need to share with the children. I don't think there is a reception class across the land that doesn't do an all about me topic at the beginning of the year. And where we actually, so we teach hand washing, we teach COVID's really helped with hand washing, but we wash our hands a lot, and we learn how to manage those things. We learn about the people's differences. We learn about respect. We teach the children actually we don't food share. We find out where we keep our water bottle, and that together, parent, teacher and child, I think, will be all reassured over how that will work in the reception class.
One of the questions that just come in around a child's reaction in daycare, and somebody's worries now about going into school. Presumably, it's all about managing that risk, and it's that risk assessment, and to work with rather than it being a one-way dialogue is very important.
Yeah, very much so. So, I can't push that risk assessment enough. And alongside that is thinking about how the parent of the child wants that, information to be communicated, and that's why I've given the anaphylaxis campaign my model letter that I send out. That, like I said, it's, you know, it's a letter that is anonymous. It doesn't name the child, but it can name the child if that's what the parent wants. And it says, you know, there is a child starting in Robin class that is severely allergic to nuts, severely allergic to milk, and this is what you can do to help prepare the rest of the children to understand, and actually thinking about food sharing and hand washing, and that, yeah, they can't eat some of these things in schools, and what needs to go in lunch boxes and things like that. It can, but it is about risk assessment, and it is about managing that, and it is very scary when your child has an allergic reaction outside of your control. Very, very scary, and I know, I completely understand that. Communication, relationships.
Thanks. And another question that's come in here is around at what age would you expect the child to have their own AAIs in school and take responsibility for, not necessarily the child taking responsibility, but, you know, it's theirs that they go in with?
Right from the word go, they should be going in, because otherwise, you know, you're carrying these AAIs backwards and forwards, aren't you, to school? So actually they just go into the class and then they go home again, because otherwise we've got so many different sets of AAIs all over the place, that it's also a bit wasteful on resources. We want the children to be having their AAIs with them all of the time. That's the message, carry two. And the child, in reception, it's the adult's responsibility, obviously, to make sure that those AAIs are where the child needs them to be, all of the time. And as the child gets older and gets into Key Stage 2, when they are, say, 8, 9, we need to be encouraging them to be taking more responsibility. It's still the adult responsibility. I'm not saying that schools don't have that responsibility, then it's always got to be the adult's responsibility. But it is just saying then, Tracey, if you know, Tracey, have you got your AAIs to take out on the playground? And it's teaching them, because at secondary school there is nobody. So it is a big transition all the way through.
There's an interesting question here about a daughter with anaphylaxis to egg, and the school has an egg rolling competition every year. And I'm not quite sure from the question whether the school is insisting that the child is off school that day when the kind of egg rolling competition, or the parents decided to take the child out of school for that one day. How would you see that should be managed better? Because it doesn't seem right to me.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, the school cannot insist that the child is off site that day. The child has a right to be in school. So, without, you know, being able to talk through the absolute specifics, it's about the school working with the parent to find out how that can be made better. Now, we have had a child who was allergic to egg, was anaphylactic to egg. We worked with the parents, and the parents actually said, well, as long as it doesn't touch the egg, that's fine. So it was managed, and he had his gloves. Now, that might not be okay in this other situation. So do the school have to roll real eggs? Can they not roll plastic eggs? We moved to plastic egg rolling a good few years ago. I think it was probably something to do with the pandemic, food waste, because if you roll eggs, 300 eggs, that's a lot of wasted food, and I struggle with that. So there are other ways, but it is about that communication. How can we make this activity safe and inclusive? And sometimes you do have to go in with the, cool, 300 eggs, that's a bit wasteful.
Yeah. Another interesting question there that they're rolling in now. around a child who's had a number of reactions, and they can't pinpoint exactly what the reactions is to, and how perhaps more aware or more considerate other parents need to be. So I guess about raising awareness amongst not just the pupils, the teachers, but also the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, again, it depends on how much. So school is limited in sharing personal information, but again, that's a conversation. So it depends. Is it is the parent wanting the school to communicate some more specific things? And so actually, is there a letter that can go out that says, we're having, we don't know what these allergens are. We think it might be this or this. Is this something that you can support us with? It may well be that it just needs to be in newsletters. It may well be that actually we want to run an assembly for the children in the school and actually do a parent information session on allergy. So there are lots of things. The school could be encouraged to take part in, it used to be Orange Wig Day, but Anaphylaxis Raising Awareness Day, Allergy Awareness Week, so that we get that information out into the wider community. There are lots of different ways that can be achieved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we've done away with the wigs now. I've only got this one.
That's a shame. I've got a very itchy one.
That was the problem. I think they got very itchy. No, so we moved away from that. If there pop over some more questions. We've still got a little bit of time. Another question here from one of those that are on was sent in before is, can a parent ask the GP to prescribe 2 AAIs, so the child has got one at home and then takes one to school?
Yeah, absolutely. So always 2, Simon. So it would be 2 on the child and 2 in school. Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what my teenage son has got. So he's got 2 that he carries on him and 2 that are in the school office.
Yes. Yeah. And then that's in addition to the school being able to also keep 2 of their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And was that straightforward for you in your school, being able to access the AAIs as your, the school's AAIs?
The school's AIs. We've struggled because of the to get AAIs because of the shortages. Now there aren't any shortages anymore, so please don't panic and think that there are shortages. But actually, we haven't currently got spare ones. We've got the children's ones in school, and we were hampered with making sure ours were in date, and actually it didn't feel right when we've got children who have got their own AAIs in school that we took another 2 out of the system. But now there aren't any shortages anymore. We're just in discussion about whether we're going to get EpiPens or jets.
Right. And you mentioned as well about the I mean, if you don't keep the spare pens in the central office, and I suppose it depends on how big the school is, the layout, and all the rest of it. But central office may not be the most accessible place for somebody to come from the playing grounds and wherever else it may well be. Should it not be the case that the child or the pens follow the child around the school, or goes onto the playground at sports time and so on?
Absolutely, that's exactly what happens. So we've got the child's pens are in the classroom with the child, and wherever that child goes, whether it's out to our forest schools area or whether it's going out to our tennis courts, which is part of our playground, those AAIs go with the child. At lunchtime, they go into the dining hall. Or they go to wherever the child is eating, because they don't always, in my school, they don't always eat in the dining hall. Now we're back to feeding everybody. So it is really important that they are within they're with the child, and if they're not with the child, that they're within a very tolerable distance of time.
And a question here, I think I may address you as to you as a mum rather than as a teacher, but it's about parties and, you know, kind of outside school events, and the parent that's asking the question thinks how terrified, she uses that expression, terrified other parents might be of inviting that child along because he or she may well have an allergy. Again, how do we kind of overcome those worries of people who, you know, want to do the right thing but are just really, really worried that something might go wrong?
So, I mean, the great thing about parties to begin with is that generally parents are able to hang about. And I know lots of parents are still hanging about when their children are in year 2 and older. And I've always just said, you know, I'm happy to send my child with some food, or they've said, if they've said yes or no. I mean, I still keep cake in the freezer, just so that it's easy to whip out and give to somebody when my child was invited to a party. So it's that communication, and that's why I you know, I'm a big advocate of actually sending that letter out and just saying my child is just like the same as, you know, or your child. It's just that we just need to do these different things, but come and talk to me about it. And I think that's really important. I've always been very open about my son's allergies.
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, we shouldn't deny children that opportunity to enjoy themselves as you know, as their mates do. So certainly. Coming to the end now, Tracey, what would you say as a kind of wrap up? What were the kind of must ask questions that a parent should raise with a school? I mean, I'm hearing about the risk assessments, the importance of teacher training, the importance of awareness within the school. What are the things that they really need to take into consideration?
It is that I think it's those things 100%, but it's about just remembering what it was like to find out about your child's allergies for the first time, and just how terrifying that is. And actually it's about that working together, because parents have got that knowledge that can be shared with schools. And I have found that people have always worked with me. It I can be quite hot-headed, and I've had to learn that I need to go in with that calm, non-judgmental approach, even when there's been a mistake for the, you know, what feels like the billionth time, is actually, you know, and if there really, really is somebody that's just not listening, then you use the school's complaints procedure and you follow the school's complaints procedure, because it is really robust and it will support resolving those problems. The school nurses are also a really good resource, that and they, in Wiltshire, they handle all of the children's allergy plans and our critical anaphylaxis training. So we get our awareness training for the anaphylaxis campaign, and our school's nurse give us our anaphylaxis training. So they're a really good resource as well.
So I think the you know, we just got to remember that the Anaphylaxis as a charity, we're here to help. You know,
Yeah.
we want to support both teachers, both parents, and the kids, you know, to do the right thing. And if we can do that, then I'm a very happy person. And you know, lots of the resources are online. Lots of them are free. Some of the courses are very, very modestly priced. You know, I think if you want to get a certificate for the allergy wise training for teachers, it's a £5. You know, so it's very accessible. Being able to do the course is free. We're getting a new website in the next couple of weeks, so in July we'll have a bit of a new fresh look, and the website will look even better with more accessible information on it. So you know, keep an eye out. If you're not already signed up to the newsletter, get the newsletter as well. There's always handy hints and tips in that, in the newsletter, and again that'll be evolving into something better in July. And Tracey, you're our education ambassador, and you know, no doubt we'll be inviting you along to many other events and getting involved in things like this and these kind of discussions, but certainly you're helping us an enormous amount on developing new materials all the time for schools, so that they can carry on doing the right things. And certainly, you know, we want to do the right thing by doing more for them. So thank you very much indeed, everybody, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much indeed, Tracey, for your time. It's a particularly busy time for you, not just finishing off, as you were saying, for this year, but just before the summer break, but starting for next year. So most grateful for your time in this very busy time of year, and keeping you this late as well. So thanks everybody. We'll wrap it up now, and see you all on another call soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.